Jason&Jabari. Jason&Jabari.
Well, good day, gentlemen. We're back. It's podcasting time. I know we skipped last season given the lack of any real interest in this game and playing and pushing in BGs, but I think the time is back. Kabam's made some moves in the store and in the game mode that I think incentivize even some of us sweats to get in there and mix it up a little bit more. So I'm looking forward to shooting the breeze and talking through with Jay, Will, and AFO here what the season's going to look like, who's good, offense, defense, what the nodes are going to be, and provide a path and guide to help people out. How are you gentlemen doing today?
I'm doing well, man. I'm excited. My passion for battlegrounds, due to the changes, the upcoming changes, has, I won't say fully reignited, but definitely intrigued me. I'll use that word. Have intrigued me enough to see what it's all about.
Amen. I'm with you. How you doing, AFO?
I'm doing great, man. Real good. Real busy today. I picked today because my calendar was empty, and of course, there's no way around it. If I pick the day that's busy, people will cancel. If I pick the day that's empty, people will add meetings. So, yeah, we just roll. We ball.
Yeah, we ball.
We ball, bro. Let's go.
Such is life. We ball, baby. Let's do it.
We ball. Now, one tip and trick out there for the people: when you see the open slot on the calendar and you go, you know what, I'm going to use that time, then you set up a nice 2-hour meeting. You set that meeting to private, and when people try to book over it, you just go, ha! Look, man, I've clearly got this block scheduled here, certainly for very important things.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I did.
That's right.
Now in my 2-hour block.
Yep.
All right,
Yeah,
fellas.
I can't do that, but let's roll.
Oh, come on, AFO. Can't or won't?
Interesting.
Want.
All right, let's get into this mix. So kicking off, let's talk through the VT first.
Okay.
And as they've made the adjustment, we're in the 2 meta circumstances now. So the first 2 weeks of the Gladiator circuit will effectively be the victory trap with 1 additional node, which we'll get into when we transition. And then weeks 3 and 4 will be a different meta altogether.
Okay.
So in the VT, this meta, what we've got is a Mystic-focused meta. When they throw a striker, they will steal 30% of the defender's max power. And while that striker is active, the defender cannot gain power from being struck. When the attacker reaches 1 bar of power, the defender will get a power gain buff that gives them 100% of a bar of power over 4 seconds. It's very noticeable. In addition to that, for each buff the defender has gained, they'll get a power charge, and once they get 8 power charges, they will get a power efficiency passive, meaning that they will lose less power when they throw a special. So you're feeding them power, they're losing less power if they're buff heavy when they throw a special. And in addition to both of those, your striker spirit gain is increased by 50%. So from a Mystic standpoint, not only are you stealing power, and they're not gaining it when you're hitting them while it's active, but then your striker's also recharging 50% more quickly.
Yeah.
So, with that set of nodes, gentlemen, I'm sure we've been playing a little bit. Who's been sticking out to you? Offense, defense? Who wants to kick off and lead the way?
Actually,
I will go first there. I don't mind.
Go for it, buddy.
So definitely the Mystic champs are sticking out. Your Shathras, Kushalas, Juggernaut, they're all back now. If you used them before, they're back. And you definitely want to have some Mystic heavies in your roster, ready to steal some power. Also, your generic champions that do a lot of big damage that don't mind maybe baiting out a special or 2. So this is like your Deathless Thanos, your big cosmic hitters. I could see your CGR if you're still running some 6-stars in there, which they're powerful 6-stars. Kate, a lot of these really strong champions that don't mind a little bit of power gain can still work. So it's going to be a meta where if you have a smaller roster, you can still get through the victory track if you're skilled and guys are ranked up to at least Ascended 6-star. You can get through the victory track just using your nukes and trying to draft your best. But I think it's a pretty open meta. obviously, outside of the kind of scary champion defenders that we'll get into later. So,
Okay. Valid points. Valid points. I have also been playing the just the victory track, and some of my findings, in my opinion, I would say one of the okay, that's a little bit of a stretch. One of the champions that is not necessarily must have, but is a very effective champion that I have found is America Chavez. Um,
Amen. Yes, sir.
just that getting up those dark dimensions, reversing the healing, and then you can just go absolutely crazy. I found her extremely good. AFO mentioned Juggernaut. Another one that I found very useful is Count Nefaria. Um,
Yep.
with the power control and stilling ability that he has, I found him to be absolutely clutch in a lot of different situations. I have not utilized my striker into not allowing them to gain power, so that's something that I need to work on for this meta. But another champion that actually is very good at power control, in my opinion, one that I run is Spiral. She
Hmm.
also does very well at managing power and things like that. So there's some of the few that I have absolutely thrived with. Photon, she does well with power control. Not as well
Hmm.
as the ones mentioned, but she definitely does work offensively from my findings, as well as Titania can work, but you can't exactly well, you might depending on your defender you're facing, but some of the matchups you're going to want to bait out a special or two before you go full nuke mode with Titania from what I've found, but that's few and far in between. But those are some of the offensively capable champions that I'm seeing that are really shining uh, so far. Kushala, as Afo mentioned, she does decently well. Um,
Hmm.
my kindred, my kindred is absolutely bonkers.
Mm.
One of the reasons is because obviously this whole meta benefits Mystic champions, and once he gets his degens rolling, man, and you're stealing power, man, you're just cycling specials back to back, and at rank 4 that degen damage is just it's just atrocious. It's absolutely
Oh, I
absurd.
bet.
And adversely on defense, if they don't have someone to manage him in his charges going out of control, they're gonna have a couple cycles of degen that they're gonna have to deal with mandatorily. So he can definitely be a little bit more problematic in this meta due to the nature of the nodes, from what I've found so far.
Yeah, I could see that. I think Kindred, you have the rank 4, so he's just going to be slapping on attack, and I think the extra power probably helps him quite a bit.
It
I
does.
would think that if he cooperates, it kind of hinders him on defense because then he's getting more power and you can pause the charges more. But that Kindred AI in the current game is so sketchy. You don't know when he's going to throw the random heavy. You don't know how
Exactly.
any of that's going to go. So I could totally see that.
Yes, and another thing with him on offense is once you get up his what's atrophy? Atrophy, I believe is what it's
Atrophy,
called, right?
yes,
So
correct.
when you give your opponent that bar of power where they're getting that power gain, it's gone in a second and you gain power from there. So you're literally just firing off specials back to back. And if they're already in his mode where he's degenerate in the affection mode or whatever, then
Hmm.
it's pausing if you're hitting them with special ones. It's pausing and
Hmm.
those degens are stacking, and it's just crazy. It's
Very
absolutely
nice.
wild.
That's a good shout.
Yeah.
That's a good
So
shout. A few others that you guys hit like half the list that I had put together because I think all good options, especially the Mystics. I think you hit the nail on the head with Chavez. She may arguably be the singular best attacker from the Mystic side, just for sheer I can stop all power gain and or reverse it and steal
mhm.
power and cycle more Chavez specials and heal on my special twos, etc., etc., etc. So she's going to do great work. Another approach, of course, is just preventing the buff from coming at all. So I took Wiccan up for war, but he's been in my deck.
Okay.
Putting the neutralize up. Tigra keeping the neutralize up, preventing those buffs from proccing at all. Mojo also has that similar atrophy style thing, right, where he shortens the power gain, and it's just going to benefit him and his setup. A couple other sneaky ones that I've been playing with. Luke Cage also has great power control and power reversal from ability power rate, and he'll do work for champs like your Kindred over there, being able to shut down that B-gen. Piggy, of course, takes advantage of the power gain. So you just kind of cycle special ones, cycle special twos. He's going to be pretty good this meta, I think. And Venom. Venom has been doing very well for me, just omnoming that power gain and being pretty versatile. I think that he's going to be probably pretty solid for both metas, but we'll get into that. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is more of an open meta for sure. It's really just benefiting the Mystics from the attack side. And, there's not a ton of, these offensive champs aren't going to work. You're probably going to want to build a deck of some of your most powerful champs and your Mystics, and really just account for the painful defenders, which we'll get into now. Get prepared for those. If you can answer those, few handfuls of questions on the worst defenders and have a solid setup on offense, I think you'll be in a good spot for the first 2 weeks, whether it's Victory Track or Gladiator Circuit. So with that transition, gentlemen, has there been anyone that's been sticking out to you on defense that's just a real pain in the butt?
AFO, you started first originally, so if we can just continue that rotation, I think it'll be easiest, unless you got something going on at the moment.
We'll give him just a split second to unmute.
Oh no, I didn't realize that I was muted. My apologies, fellas. I would go ahead and go with the defenders. I'm ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the single worst defender of this meta is going to be our boy. You thought I was going to say Serpent, but no, I think it's Bullseye. I think Bullseye, and every once in a while, Bullseye kind of overtakes all the other defenders. And I think that even though we have a bunch of mutants to counter him now, if you are caught, even with some of these mutants, mutants don't tend to control power very well. So what happens is he ends up getting basically double the special ones he used to get.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're basically going to have to deal with 2 special ones every time you would used to deal with 1 special one. And so unless you have a hard Bullseye counter, you're really going to feel that Bullseye is very annoying. If you haven't been caught yet, then you will be. I think some other defenders that obviously the ones that are always bad will continue to be bad. That's like your Serpent, etc. I think also I fought a Mangog. Very annoying. He already has his own passive power gain, and so and you're trying to limit his number of special ones, but you don't want to take too many special twos on the block.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's cycling power the same way offensive champs cycle power. If you don't have power control, the defensive champs will be cycling power, and you'll be dealing with double the specials essentially. Some other annoying ones that I know of are Maestro. He's throwing a lot of specials. Once he gets his charges, you're getting caught in the root. You're blocking those. If you don't have, once again, obviously, a number of these champions, because of the nature of MCOC now with RPG counters, if you have a counter, yes, but we're looking at defenders that even with an average counter. So let's say you're doing a normal fight like an Onslaught versus Maestro, which in a normal meta you might have to do. It's going to be significantly more annoying now, him tossing off multiple special ones, getting to all of his stuff faster. And that's basically what I'm noticing with the defenders now. Like, if you can't control the power and they have annoying specials, obviously Photon is another one. I have Ebony Maw as a slightly annoying one. If you can't deal with back-to-back special ones, you can easily get a degen straight away just from him throwing back-to-back special ones now. So yeah, a couple of good defenders like that for sure that I've seen.
Well said. Picking up where you left off, guys, we are emphasizing heavily on if you don't have a counter, because in the comment section, sometimes you got that 1 or 2 people that like to say this defender is very easy because of X, Y, and Z. Well, sometimes the draft doesn't go to X, Y, or Z. So we're not talking about those circumstances. We're talking about just, hey, you can trap certain people if they don't have proper counters for these defenders in this meta. So with that in mind, definitely the Mystic class at large. Long shot, he's a nuke. He will nuke you in 30 seconds or less if you do not have something to manage his power, because the moment you dex and the moment you see a special 2 come, whether you dex that or not, you're probably dead. So you can definitely long shot trap people this meta
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Enchantress can be nasty because she's continuously getting to that special 1, which is annoying because you have to get rid of her spells a certain way. Um, my luck with Enchantress, I always get the intercept, and it's really hard to intercept sometimes if the AI doesn't cooperate, and then she's throwing another one. So any damage you've dealt to her, it's going to reflect back on you. So she is very, very nasty. But the Mystic class at large is going to thrive. It was built specifically for Mystic, it would seem. So I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to touch too much on the Mystic champions, but just bear that in mind. Another one that I think can be a sneaky defender as well as a very good attacker is Hyperion. Um, Most of the time we don't consider Hyperion to be a defender anymore because we kind of know how he works. But with the natural power gain that he has, plus you giving him more power, gives him more opportunities to hit you with an SP3. And trust me, the first one won't hurt, but you're going to feel everyone else after that one because he's going to have those charges and he's just going to hit you. And sometimes that makes the difference because your health pool matters how you finish the fight. So that's definitely something to watch out for, in my opinion. Just basically any champion that has, like AFO said earlier, a way to give themselves more power on top of power gain equals disaster if you can't manage it properly. So any champion that associates themselves with gaining more power naturally due to whatever X reason, you might want to take into consideration. Warlock is going to be pretty good as long as you're opponents are running willpower. Offensively and defensively, he'll be really good because once the
Mm-hmm.
infection is up on your opponent from attacking him, they start losing power when he starts firing off specials due to an armor break and or a shock. So he can definitely be very beneficial this meta, in my opinion. Void also is a good dual threat if you have a decently sig one because he can manage the power, and if they don't fight him properly, they're going to lose some health, if not kill themselves, depending on how well they fight with Void.
Yeah, that's fair. I think definitely if you got a big void, I always try to shy away from him in an RNG meta because I'm telling you, man, every single time I want that petrify anywhere near the front of that thing, it's the fifth debuff that shows up every time.
Every time, man. Every time.
Every
Kabam
time.
knows. Kabam
They
knows.
do. They know.
Yeah.
Let me get my tinfoil hat out for sure. That's a good shout. Those are all good ones. I like that's a good shout for Warlock. Good shout for Hype for sure. Enchantress, yeah, we didn't mention her, but she's pretty nasty. You're gonna want to come up with some good counters for her. I've been using Gug, who's been doing pretty well. A few others that stuck out for me for sure is Onslaught. Right, anytime you give him more power, he's just more of a pain. Got to bait more specials, or try not to get clipped on that special too with his AI. One of the
Absolutely.
more surprising, annoying ones has been Red Skull, because he gets so many buffs. He's not losing a lot of power. He's getting power gain. You got to bait special twos. You can get rid of the unstoppable, but you need to parry him, or you need to hit him. Can't really parry him, so I have found him to be quite annoying in this meta. But there's one big one that sticks out to me that we haven't mentioned yet, and this tanky tech defender has been a pain. I think is going to be a major pain for a lot of people this meta, and that of course is Arnim Zola, because
I don't
he
have
gets the
Zola.
energizes anyway. You got to try to bait specials. If you push him to special 2, you're going to take some direct damage that you can't avoid. And yeah, he becomes even tankier than usual when you
Yeah.
can't deal with his power gain.
Yeah, that is a very good shout. Truth.
Great shout.
I will tell everyone the best way to deal with Artem Zola is the ban button. Okay, is the ban button. You do it quick, fast, in a hurry. I've never let a Zola see the light of day, and I don't plan on it either for very good reasons. But I promise you, you'll never face one if you ban them. I promise you. You can take that to the bank.
Fair. That's probably a good approach if you're not well prepared for a Zola this meta.
Yeah,
Sure.
I've only faced Arnim Zola when I didn't do my bans properly. So there you go.
Yeah,
There you go.
He's banned to the Shadow Realm every single time for me. I will, even if he's at R2. I promise you, that's just how I approach it. Not how you guys have to if you don't want to. But I've dealt through too much painful experiences with that guy, so I'm good.
It's very fair. A couple other quick shouts of champs that stuck out to me. Someone did place a Gallon for me. And, without a neutralizer, he gets a little tricky, but then he gets all the buffs and stuff when he's throwing specials. And I wound up eating harvest damage. I'm sure there's a way to handle that better, but, don't get Gallon trapped. Watch out for that. He could be sneaky.
Ooh.
And then similarly with Nova, right? He gets some weird AI and stuff, and he gets a bunch of buffs and doesn't lose power and gets you in the corner, and you can't parry easily. So
I have
even though they're cosmics.
You're
Yeah,
right.
sure.
I have a question. Gallon's not coming out within the time span of this month, is he, for this meta?
He is out in pre-release.
Oh,
So anyone who got the 7-star from pre-release will have him.
True.
Otherwise, he won't be in it until June, I think.
Okay,
he enters the Titan.
So it's very possible to deal with some rank 3s, potentially a rank 4 Gallon. Okay. All right.
It could happen.
Yeah.
It could happen for sure.
Definitely depending on where you play. Also, the power gain buff itself does give him a harvest. Like one,
Yes.
I think it's 10 harvest. So
Mhm.
you're talking about every bar you have to, and you want to bait the special one, so he's going to get 4 Furies, and then it's just going to cycle through that again. So 2 times through that with the extra 2 buffs can put him in harvest, right? So it's just it's a little tricky. Got to knock him down with some specials and
very good shout.
Try your best. Just pray. Yeah.
Excellent shout.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, gentlemen, does anyone else stick out? For the reality is then for the first 2 weeks of the GC, the node that changes is, when you get to 1 bar of power, they'll get a power gain. When you get to 2 bars of power, the defender will get an indestructible buff for 5 seconds. So something to be aware of when you're throwing your specials. At the same time, a lot of your mystics are probably going to work around that.
Yeah, I don't. Oh no, that was just me agreeing with you. I mean, I think it will be a slightly more annoying, but I don't foresee too many people changing their deck from the VC to the GC drastically enough because of that either. I think most people are just going to have to adapt, but I don't foresee like, hey, in the VC, you got these 30 champions and now you need to shave half of them off to enter into the GC or VT and then into the GC. You know what I'm saying? I don't really see that. But I do think we should be aware that that's going to be a thing for sure. Yeah, I just because I personally am probably going to keep the same exact deck that I deem is going to get me through the victory track and take that deck into the gladiator circuit for the first 2 weeks with maybe after a week of playing fine tuning, but not changing my deck. You know what I mean? Like I just don't.
Yeah.
I don't think it's enough of a threat to completely change my entire deck up for it specifically. But that's my opinion, though.
Yeah. Here's one more shout too. Do you guys think that we'll see a slight emergence of a re-emergence of Absman this meta, especially in the VT and the GC version of it? He shuts off the duration of that indestructible. With the relic, you should be able to relic push. You'll get to 2 bars. They'll get indestructible. It'll expire, right? And you can still do your, get a few extra charges and do your heavy counter special. It's a mystic meta, so if he's gonna come back and show, this is probably the time, right?
I think it's a good shout.
No, that's a great shout. Yeah, you might
Yeah.
be seeing a couple of ascended Asmans running around. Let me show on the screen for my viewers real quick before we run off to another uh conversation. But I do have a resurgence in my mind. There we go. For weeks 3 and 4, and that's thing. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. So, but yeah,
Mm.
I think that's possible. I think that's very, very possible, to be honest with you, Afo. For those who do play Abs, man, this would be a great time to bring them back if they have a slot, an empty slot, assuming they have an empty slot.
Yeah, I agree with that. We've seen what happened when abs can get kind of supercharged, and this, to Atho's point, I think that seems like a good meta where being able to cycle your power, being able to get your pauses right from shutting down this indestructible or from the power gain buff expiring. He's that's a good one. Didn't have my eyeballs on him, but I just may work him into the deck for some fun.
I hope not.
I know that you don't understand this 6-star conversation we're having right now, Jay Will, but it turns out there are other power levels in the game.
There are.
Us measly poor little guys down here. Okay. Well, anything else for weeks 1 and 2, gentlemen, before we hop into weeks 3 and 4?
I don't personally, but I didn't hear your thoughts though. If you have any,
I don't. I think it's pretty open. I think we've laid out a good path for people. Get your mystics going. Listen back to that defense list, and if there's anyone on that defense list that you're not prepared to deal with, you probably want to ban them.
Yeah, Artem Zola.
Otherwise, you're going to get trapped.
Artem Zola. What?
Yeah, ban them or rank a couple of counters. Remember, you have an option, right? Especially if you have those same champions. And this is a general, as we move to the next section, general advice for countering defenders. If you have these defenders ranked up, but you look in your deck and you don't have counters ranked up, you have an option to either try and, resources are limited, but try and rank the counter or 2. And a rule I like to have is I like to have 3 counters in my deck for a problem champion, or I consider banning. And then if you can't rank any counters, then you need to elevate that person to the top of your ban list, because you can't afford to let these game-changing defenders run free while you have no counters. It's how you just lose rounds. So you have to really look at it like that. Are you going to ban the defender, rank the counter, or ban the champion? Yeah,
I agree.
Well said. Okay, well, gentlemen, let us transition then to the big bang, right? The weeks 3 and 4. We know that's when the big sweats are going to be out pushing. I expect there's going to be a lot of jockeying for position with the reinvigorated battlegrounds that we're going to see this meta. I'm hearing a lot of people who haven't pushed in months and months getting themselves ready to go. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, guys, for sure. Definitely going to be interesting.
Amen to that. All right, so weeks 3 and 4, we have when the defender gains a buff, they also get a 10% energized buff for 12 seconds with a max stacks of 10. Again, we see some more power gain. Instead of being ability power rate this time, it's combat power rate. And so something to be aware of, these buff-heavy champs are going to gain more power as you hit them. Then we have Stunning Reflection, Bleed, and Shock, which means they'll basically start the fight with a stun shield. If you stun them, that stun will be reflected to you, and you'll be stunned for 3 seconds. It is a debuff, so you can reduce it, but let's be real, you're going to get stunned and you're going to get smacked in the face.
With most champions,
when you apply,
absolutely.
Yes, with most champions, absolutely. Now, when you apply either a bleed or a shock, it's going to put that stun shield on cooldown for 8 seconds. And while that is on cooldown, you're going to get a 40% Fury passive during that time. In addition to that, we have a minor setback, meaning the defender is armor break and nullify immune, and knocking them down will disable that immunity for 15 seconds.
Yes,
so that's what we're looking at for weeks 3 and 4.
Okay, excellent. AFO, you want to kick this one off for everybody, or?
Yes, I do, because one of my guys, is going to be a top 2 and defender. Finally, after a year of waiting, after him being my first rank 3, Gore is back on the scene.
I knew
Let's go. Now listen to this. This man is going to have so many energized, you're not going to know what to do. You're going to be dexing specials, and then every time he throws the special, he's going to get more energized. Dredd was fighting him yesterday. He had 10 energized, took a medium, 6 debuffs on him, just
And
What is
ticking
that just going
away.
yeah,
Terrible time with gore. On the other side of it, he actually has access to shock and bleed.
okay.
So you'll be able to turn off the node when a champ is, even if they're immune to one of them, you will still be able to turn the node off with the other debuff.
Mhm.
And yeah, he's going to be a solid attacker in this meta and a solid defender in this meta. I happen to have a rank 3 natural Sig 160 gore, and I
then
will be
Morningstar's
using him.
And then
Wow.
Morningstar's going to show up, and she's just going to say, "Nah."
Yeah, it's very possible. In addition, so now that we got Gore out of the way, because I have to find a way to put him in there. Some other champs that are going to be really good on attack are your bleeders and your shockers, right?
Mhm.
So anyone that applies those debuffs very easily, especially on their basic attacks. So you're talking about Black Cat, Shuri. The big one that I'll leave to J Will. I won't say her, but he'll say her. And
Almost
there's a
said her.
bunch of other champs too that, and you have to remember, you get a 40% fury when you disable the node, and so that's going to bring in some champs that maybe you're not thinking of. Another one I will take from J Will, because I know we thought about this, is Gentle.
Yep.
Even though Gentle does not apply those debuffs, because when you get stunned, you shrug that on a parry. He will turn off the node and get the 40% fury. And that is going to be very nice for when you throw that special with all your daunted multiplied with the fury. It's going to be big stuff. So you definitely want to have your Gentle if you're a fan like me.
Huge fan.
And yeah, you just want to be very careful with the stun. I was testing my Deathless Thanos yesterday. The heavy chain does get reflected onto you.
Yep.
So you cannot just go in there and just charge my heavy. You get stunned mid-heavy, and then you get hit in the face. So just understanding which champions stuns get reflected, and go from there. But yeah, some good champs that are applying those debuffs on their basic hits are really good for this meta. And if you have a gore, like me, you get to use him now.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, Okoye, right? Okoye is going to cook so hard. Mine personally, my Wakandans, Gentle and Okoye are both ranked 4, and they are huge ban targets. So I don't expect to see either very much. But if you get if they let your Okoye run free and they bleed and or can be shocked, she will nuke that fight so fast your head will spin. Definitely Okoye. Another one that I'll personally be running that a lot of people probably won't be is Falcon because of his SP1 on the bleeds, but that's just I'm a Falcon Glazer, right? I'm a Falcon Glazer.
Here we
so
go.
that I'm just keeping it real, guys. I'm telling you my deck. Now, another resurgence that we talked about a little bit briefly, on defense, I think Thing will be coming back because he's bleeding and shock immune. And if you have him at a higher sig, he's going to be proccing that protection a lot. And you're going to have to be baiting out his specials. You're going to have to get him to the 15 rock stacks. So I think Thing will have a resurgence in this GC meta, personally. I think Jabari Panther, we're going to see her coming out to play again because of the bleeds, right? I think she's really good, and she can nuke that fight, especially when you get her into the hunt with that additional 40% fury buff that she'll gain. I think she'll nuke most things down, assuming that they are bleeding, right? That is the assumption. Otherwise, I think she's going to be very lackluster if they don't bleed. But
yeah,
I think she's coming back as well. As far as the shocks are concerned, I'm sorry. I think Ant-Man on defense will be a great stall option, assuming that they don't have a bleeder, because he is shock immune, and with the glance, he's going to stall as well. So I think he can be one that might be a sneaky good defender, depending on the draft. So if they have like a Shuri, and they have just that Shuri with no bleed options, I think he's going to be very difficult to take down very quickly due to the nature of how he works personally. I think Weapon X is going to have a bit of a resurgence with a lot of people because he works both ways. I
Mhm.
personally won't be running him, but he definitely has a lot of promise. He already could be a nuke, but now with that Fury, of course, he definitely will be a nuke. Another good shout that doesn't actually do anything for uh shedding off the node, I think, is Werewolf by Night. I think he'll give you access to damage by simply hitting the block and howling and gaining power that way. So therefore, it makes a lot of difficult fights a lot more manageable. I don't think he'll be the best option, but I do think he is a solid option because a lot of people tend to take him into oh my bad into hazard shift situations. So that's something definitely to consider. But I'll pass it over to Truth because I don't want to take too much of his thunder because Truth
Okay, so
definitely
let me before Truth comes in and just totally shows us what's up.
yeah.
Before he does that, I did want to drop two more details that I pulled up my deck of things I meant to say. So the other thing about my guy Gore is that when you shock and bleed him, he will trigger regens for every shadow magic buff that he has up. So if you do end up fighting a Gore, you can't just say I'm going to shock and bleed him out. It's not going to work. He's going to regen a bunch. That's the first thing. And the other one that I forgot to mention, top of my deck, my girl Photon
Yeah.
is free this meta. You parry, you get stunned, you go untouchable, you get 4 charges, and there's really no penalty for doing that. And we've seen some people really ramp her up just by repeatedly getting stunned by the node whenever it comes back, and you have that Fury as well by putting it on cooldown. So yeah, Photon, use your Photon on offense. She's more than just a defender. She'll be annoying on defense too with the block pen and you not being able to parry her. And so yeah, you're definitely gonna want to figure out how you're gonna get your openings. She's also bleed immune. And so yeah, she's gonna be trouble. Top 2-way champ once again, as she kind of always is every meta. She's amazing.
Yeah, well said. Gotta love that Photon.
Bring us
That
home,
took her up
Truth.
rank 4.
Bring us home, buddy.
What's that?
Bring us home.
We're gonna do this thing. No, we got it, bro. So first off, I wanted just to shout out the Wakandans that these gentlemen are talking about. I think Jaywa was mentioning some champ I've never heard of called Bankoye. I'm not familiar. I don't think I'll be facing her this season. I don't think that's gonna be a thing. There's a couple other ones that will definitely play into the nodes. I was mentioning earlier Venom. You got Venom. He's going to do well. He's applying those bleeds. I know that Misery's been off doing some work showing what he can do in this meta. And, he's going to be om-nomming stuff. And he's also going to be kind of a nasty two-way because he's going to be getting a bunch of energized buffs on defense. And, you don't want to really bait special twos, yada, yada, yada. Medusa is going to be doing pretty well, right? Applying her bleeds, doing what she does. But I think also this meta, as much as we're talking about champs that play into it, I do believe this is also a fairly open meta because all you're really getting to is I'm playing this stun immune, and a lot of champs are going to work in that set of nodes. So it's going to be more about kind of balancing the how much am I playing into this versus what deck can I construct that will still counter all of the things that I need to. Right at the end of the day, Juggernaut's still going to be out here crushing regardless of bleed and shock and stun reflect or any of the rest of it.
True.
There are some offensive, what I'm calling like no-goes or champs that are in decks a lot of the time that probably shouldn't be, and that's because they're kind of stun reliant. So that's like your Sinister, your Shocker, your Silk. To some extent, probably also Chavez. I mean, she's going to be a tough balance where maybe you can heavy counter heavy or heavy counter special. She'll be useful, but you can't combo into heavy like you typically do. And so those champs, you may find some uses for them, but they're probably going to be pretty difficult to use in any meaningful way unless they're pure defenders.
Also, Shang-Chi within that, I would say.
Yeah.
And Negasonic.
Yeah.
Negasonic as well. Do not be tricked by the passive stun thinking you get around it. I tested it, and as soon as you parry, you get stunned.
Yep. Same for Wags. Yeah. Same for Wags.
Yeah. Yeah, all those passive stuns, you really have to, a good example is what AFO was saying with Gentle. He is stun immune when well-timed blocking. So your only real workaround is a champ that either is going to be able to not actually be stunned when you're playing into the node, or someone like Photon where you can just reflect it and wait out. A sneaky one that people will forget is Mordo, right? Because he'll reflect the stun and then you'll try to hit him and he'll astral evade. And so for our boy AFO here flexing on his gore, don't forget your Mordos out there, ladies and gentlemen. He'll get to the special 2 and nuke that fight down very, very rapidly.
Yep.
Aw, stop.
Sorry for giving everyone that little piece of insight there.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about hundreds of Mordos running around. Let's be real.
Well, my
One other champ that has that built in is Kate also, right? Kate's going to be pretty decent in this meta where you can kind of just use your passive stun and riposte and stuff, and you'll kind of reflect it back and do stuff, but you need to know what you're doing in those types of instances for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I ask you a question about that, Truth? Because when you go for, have you seen it, or have you tested it? When you go for that initial parry, she evades and counterattacks. Can you play out in your head how you think that looks? For the people watching, does it? I haven't tested it yet, and if you haven't, that's okay. I'm just curious how that looks. Is it a evade into it, then they come hit you, and then you evade, or what happens? What?
I'll need to play with that a little bit.
Yeah,
I've seen that happen before, but we definitely need to play with that. And again, need to make sure you know what you're doing when you're using these champs for sure. She is one of the least straightforward of the things that we're talking about, right? It's not something as simple as Mordo where you parry, they try to hit you every single time, and you just evade out of it.
Yep. Great
for sure. So that's kind of my take on offense. I think it's going to be a pretty offensively open meta. You're going to play stun immune, or you're going to play into the node set, and there's going to be some subset of champs. Again, I'm not letting Okoye slide this meta for sure. Though, as we get into defenders, I have been. You wish. You wish. I get to keep my Black Panther or my Tigra, and maybe you get to keep your Okoye. We'll see how it goes. I have been working on constructing a little bit of the anti-Okoye deck, though, right? Because we have to be. You can't always ban all the threats that you want to, and so a part of what we get to do is counter these node sets, right? We want to look at champs that are bleeding shock immune like thing. I think that's a great call. He's absolutely going to have some subset of resurgence. He'll be tougher to deal with. But if black cats are out running around, if piggies are out running around, if falcons are out running around, even crossbones are out running around. There are going to be a lot of champs that counter that. So some of the champs that I've been thinking about for defense are, either champs you want to parry or champs that have immunities or champs that punish, which is where I'm going to start. So in the punishment champs, I've been looking at Havoc, Onslaught, Bishop. Sticking in my head as champs that punish you for bleeding or shocking them.
Smart. What did we talk about last time where it was something similar to this? It was Safeguard, right? Safeguard, Mixmaster, and the shop.
Oh yeah.
This was similar. This was similar. So yeah. And if you guys
Very
want to check
similar.
out that conversation, we definitely have that on the channel, by the way, guys, for the previous meta. But continue.
Yeah, and there's some other champs too that apply to this, and I'll just me and Truth will toss it back and forth. But as much as you don't want to run Sinister on offense, it will be very interesting to run him on defense this meta, and here's why. You can't really parry him, because of the node. So you're going to be kind of baiting heavies and playing him stun immune. He does have that quick heavy, and in addition, if you do have someone that's maybe drafted a bunch of debuff heavy champions, damage over time heavy champions, and they're left to fight a Sinister, well, yeah, I don't think you want to Okoye a Sinister. You probably can, but you're running that risk. It's if he decides I'm throwing this special one regardless, you're toast. And there's a number of champions like that, right? That once they place those debuffs on Sinister, you're just praying that he doesn't throw them back to you.
Yeah.
So you just want to remember that.
Shuri, prime example.
Another champ I could see really working. Yeah, Shuri. Shuri. You can Shuri Sinister until you can't Shuri Sinister, right? Another champ that I'm going to give some shout out to is Magneto, Red Magneto. Now this obviously has to do with them knowing who's metal and who's not, but he can be. You're always looking for those trap defenders, right? Like, who can I get them with in round 3 where they just don't have anybody, right? So maybe you drafted a Magneto to try and take a Maestro, or to try to take, one of these champions, right? And now you're left with Magneto, but all they have are, metal champs. They're not going to be able to do much against him, right? So I think that's like a lesser known or lesser used counter there as well. And then you got your champions like your Shield, right? That are going to be shrugging debuffs when you try to place them, and that just further complicates the match when you're trying to get them down quickly. Also, Doctor Doom is immune to shock and bleed. Tanky. Obviously, we're in the meta of 7 stars, but sometimes these champions like that in the meta where you need to get them down quickly, you want to play a Doctor Doom stun immune for a minute. How's that block damage going to look, right? So it's just a number of things to think about if you're picking your deck and you don't have the most highly ranked champs, you might have to think of the kind of the Swiss Army knife champs who are going to fit a role for you to get the win. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think Chi as a 2-way is actually a good shout.
I think
she's got the cleanses and stuff, and she applies the bleeds, and she can be pretty nasty, especially at rank 3.
Yeah.
I think Doom is shock immune. I don't believe he's bleed immune, but at the same time,
he's shock immune.
He, given this node set,
my bad.
very well may be a great 2-way because he'll apply the shock, be able to work past the stun reflect, get the extra damage boost, and just feed off of the energize buffs. So it may actually be a meta where Doom is a feasible attacker at a reasonable time. It's a good shout.
Very good shout. All right.
Very good shout.
All right. I got a few I would like to add on to that list. Starting off with the skill class. I think Atuma is going to be great. I know the shocks hinder his charges, but the bleeds actually fuel him a little bit. So depending on who you have, he can be problematic in my opinion. Korg is going to be great because Korg is shock and bleed immune, and you got to play around his thorns. So hopefully you can throw off a lot of lights. If they add a little bit of block pen to him, knowing that you're going to have to bait out some heavies there, he could rack up on the damage on you. Lumatrix is going to be super problematic because you're going to have a counter that can deal with his miss mechanic and that can deal with his evade mechanic. Now, when he evades, you passively get stunned. So if you don't have someone who can deal with that, that's going to be a problem. He's not guaranteed to throw whatever bar of specials that he has. For instance, if he has 2 bars of power, he can still throw a special 1, which would probably be your biggest nightmare because you probably want to bait out special 2s and have someone who can deal with the miss, but it's not guaranteed. He's done it to me before, so I think he's going to be super problematic defensively. Offensively, he's a nuke. He has this miss mechanic, but I think if you stun him, you'll get stunned. So you might have to play around that a little bit. But he can definitely nuke down opponents. I haven't played him too much offensively because I've caught a lot of people with him defensively. Another problematic champion that I love personally now is a Nightcrawler, because a lot of people, the way they were dealing with Nightcrawler when they couldn't switch him was to parry him, get in a few hits, and rinse and repeat. Well, if you don't have someone that can apply a bleed or shock, then he's going to be a nightmare for a lot of different people because a lot of people don't know the timing to switch him, and it's very inconsistent, by the way.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
So Nightcrawler is a personal favorite. I cannot wait to bring him back. So don't be surprised if you guys see some Nightcrawlers. I would just say have a way to deal with them or to deal with his evade, because that's definitely going to be a thing, in my opinion. Other than that, I think Dust. I'm surprised AFO didn't say that. Will be a decent.
Me too. I left that for him.
I was leaving it for AFO, but I'm surprised he didn't. I'm sorry, AFO. I love you, brother. But Dust, she is bleed and she is shock immune. And the good thing about Dust is if they have bleeders, they're going to double the sand debuffs that they get on themselves every time they would apply a bleed. So that means a lot more sandstorm, especially if they, let's say, you're down to the last round and they only have like a black cat, a a chi, and Okoye, right? Now, granted, they didn't draft very well, but this is this hypothetical scenario. If you have Dust on defense, she's going to cook them the entire fight. And yeah, so she can definitely be a trap defender. Offensively, if you're going to use her, stay away from her SP2 because that passively stuns the opponent and therefore you will get stunned. But her SP1 is safe, her SP3 is safe. So there's that to bear in mind. And those are the ones that I really was considering. I don't know if you have any others to add to that or not, Truth.
I got a few. I kind of got zoned. What was the first one that you brought up? I missed. I picked up that Nightcrawler. No, Korg. Sorry, I picked up that Korg. I think I missed what was just before Korg.
Atuma. I said Atuma. If you start bleeding him, you're actually going to fuel him.
Yeah, that's a good shout. I think Atuma is going to be good. Now, of course, for those who are listening to this, you know me, and I only have 2 words for some of these things that they're saying, which is called razzle dazzle.
Oof. Yeah.
But I can understand what people are talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true.
A few more that stuck out to me for sure. I do spend a lot of time trying to prove this champ mediocre, but often you want to stun him, and that would be Sentinel. I think Sentinel's going to be a little bit tougher to deal with when you can't stun him pretty regularly.
True.
Serpent, of course, right? You kind of want to get your stuns in and stuff, so there's going to be some things to deal with. You know, Kush likes the stuns, Chavez likes the stuns. There's going to be some stuff to work around. Same with Bullseye, right? When you can't just sit and parry Bullseye. I know you guys are a couple gentle guys, so you're in a good spot there. But for the masses, Bullseye could be pretty problematic when you got to start taking block hits and damage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A sneaky one that I know I saw pop out earlier, but has been rattling around in my brain. Also, a typically mediocre defender, but I think will be in for causing people some pain this meta is Arcade. Not being able to stun him regularly and having to play around kind of his heavies and how his kit works. He could be fairly problematic for people if you're not prepared for what's coming.
I will say to that point, guys, try and learn the SP1 Dex and Punish, because that will definitely help you out in fighting Arcade, as opposed to just baiting out the SP2s, because sometimes that could actually be more detrimental than just learning how to deal with the SP1.
Completely agreed. I think that the tweak that was made to make him tougher on defense actually led people down the road of learning that special one, and it made him easier on defense.
Yes, I agree.
Because once people got that SP1 figured out, now he's kind of a potato unless the nodes put you in a position where it's exceedingly difficult.
Correct. I agree with that statement.
I loved the Luma shout. That was a great shout out. And Nightcrawler. I will say that even though AFO was mentioning Deathless Thanos earlier, and while you can't combo into your passive stun, you can work your heavy in. And for instance, I took a Nightcrawler in this meta earlier this morning, and you still apply the panic. So you will still be able to work around, evade, and miss. So for instance, someone like Lumatrix with Thanos, it's just going to be harder to get your big damage up with the armor break and armor shatter, but you can use your relic for that, heavy counter special, heavy counter heavy, things like that. So Deathless Thanos is going to be alive and well, as long as you know what you're doing. And of course, we got to get back to our big tech tank. You want to knock him down to keep those charges down. Arnim Zola is going to be an absolute pain in weeks 3 and 4 in the GC.
Guys, if you don't ban him, I don't know what you're doing. Listen, if you practice banning Arnim Zola, since the victory track, you'll be an expert at doing it by the time you get to weeks 3 and 4. I promise. It'll be so instilled in your brain to do it. It'll be second nature. I promise. But yeah, he's going to be one of the nastiest defenders for this meta, for sure. I won't have that problem. I don't know about y'all.
Just look for the big. Just look for the big blue face.
Yep.
And tap it.
Hey, tap it quickly. Don't even hesitate. No hesitation.
Tappy. That's a good one.
Yeah.
I think one other offensive shout that comes to mind is Hood. He gets easy openings with his invisibility, so he can work around some of that. He applies Fate Seal and Stagger, which is not impacted by the nodes. And he is stun immune when he's invisible.
That is
So I'm
true.
assuming he'll be able to play into some of the I'm parrying but not getting stunned, getting my extra damage percentage. And he's exceedingly versatile. If you have a
Yeah.
7-star rank 3 hood, he's going to take a ton of stuff that people aren't accounting for.
Yeah.
Yep. Really good shout there.
Very, very good shot. I didn't even consider that, but yeah, everything he said is absolutely spot on with that one. I fear hood players personally because I know what they're capable of. Because it's been done to me far too often. So if I see a big hood, I'm probably going to consider banning him because I know just how crazy and how fast players can do things with him. So yeah.
Completely agreed. That's about my list, gentlemen. That's where my thoughts are. I think it's a pretty open meta. It's just going to be tricky, right? This is going to be one of those metas where if you really want to push, you need to consider your bans. You need to consider your deck construction. You need to consider how you're going to draft, how you're going to place, and you're going to have to be somewhat locked in your execution because one wrong parry, bad dex timing, not thinking through what applies a passive stun or what will be reflected, could absolutely catch you and cost you rounds.
Yeah, I agree. Also,
Yeah. And
I just saw Guardian. I think Guardian will be pretty good.
Yeah, I think that's true. What were you saying, AFO?
Yeah, I was saying, I don't know if you guys can hear me if I'm breaking up, but just to add on to that, what Truth was saying is that, we classify these metas, and sometimes people don't like it because they say it's a nuke meta, or there's only these many overpowered champions, it's so draft dependent, it's so RNG dependent. This is one of those metas, in my opinion, where it doesn't appear, and I could be wrong, but doesn't appear to be a nuke meta. It appears to be a strategy meta. And you're going to have to learn the counters. You're gonna have to learn who the trap defenders are, have answers, and if you get in a situation where you don't have answers, how do you adjust on the fly? When Kabam makes a meta like this, some people do want to just go in there and smash with their nuke champions, and you will be able to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
But just be prepared to maybe think about the matches and the placements a little deeper in order to give yourself the best chance to win. So yeah,
Right.
That's my thoughts on it.
Also, guys, I've been trying to do better at covering certain masteries that I believe will help. I think Coagulate and Sutra are going to be ran by some of the top players because they want that bleed mitigation. And no one will see that coming. I think always you want to run inequity if you're going to run debuff heavy champions, not only for the offensive side of things, but to AFO's point, Gore, you definitely want to have max inequity, no matter if you're using him offensively or defensively, because that will greatly benefit with damage mitigation and or helping with the damage that you take as far as if you're on offense and you have a ton of debuffs up. I think assassin and deep wounds, if you're running a lot of bleeders, are definitely going to be your allies for sure. So I think those are the main ones that I would definitely encourage you guys to be running. I think a lot of people are going to be running MD throughout various victory tracks through the weeks 1 and 2. So you definitely want to prepare yourself for that. And yeah, that's about everything that I got as far as masteries.
In your utility tree as well. And usually for most players it's a standard, but you're definitely going to want to have max stupefy and I think max limber for your defenders. There will be accidental parries. One happened to me last night. And you're going to get comboed, but if you're running 1 out of 5 limber, you're going to feel how much longer you're stunned. So you in a meta where you do need to mitigate when it goes bad, don't skimp on your limber points and be sitting there stunned for 3 seconds or whatever the long duration is, because your defenders will be running stupefy, right? So they're going to extend the duration of stuns. So you need to kind of counteract that by having Lear limber at least 4 or 5, if not 5 of 5. So Yeah, in my opinion.
Very good
I
shout.
agree.
Very good shout. All right, gentlemen. Do you guys have anything else to add? I am at 5%. I had to put my phone on the charger. It's getting super hot, but yeah.
Oh no, we made it. I will shout one last champ that I forgot about, which was Mantis. Her sleep is not a stun, and she's very versatile. So anyone who knows how to do some Mantis nukes will be live and well.
Okay.
But outside of that, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Truth channel, it's going to be Celestial or Bust. We'll definitely have some stream grinding going on. And no matter what, I wish these gentlemen on the call and all of you the absolute most successful season you can.
Yeah, guys, I'm gonna play off camera, but I am, if I do push, I'm gonna play seriously. So bear that in mind, but I'm not going to be streaming this season. I have a lot of real life stuff going on. I'm gonna continue to roll out the videos such as this one for now.
Definitely. And also Mantis should, as we do our final things out, Mantis should also, versus Science Champs, be able to prevent the stun from the stun reflect while her tranquilize is active. So just enjoy fighting your Science Champs almost normally. As for me, I'll be playing Battlegrounds, and you'll see me around in the chats and hanging out, and hope everyone has a good and fun season. Thanks for letting me be on here, guys, and great conversation today.
Always.
Appreciate you too.
It's always a fun time. So yeah, best of luck in everyone's season. I don't have anything else to say. If that's it.
No, peace.
Peace.